record the call. And then I'm going to, while I'm standing in the shade, make Tyler the host. Okay. All right. So we're all official. Tyler, you're the host. We are recording the call.
He'll probably make me the host next. But
he will. That's okay. I have lots of trust in all of you. So I will give the very brief update, and then let you go about having this call. So thank you all for joining. We appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm. The things that I wanted to share are that we're putting together the plan for some of this that's going forward. As far as what Victor and Andy had mentioned from the stage, which is about a future RFP project. We understand that there's some questions and tensions and curiousness around how NRPs and ecosystem building practitioners and initiatives all kind of roll together. Just a couple of things top of mind are there is no solid plan yet. So yes, there will be something. They're working on formulating what that something looks like. And so all of the thoughts and questions that are being shared right now are definitely under consideration, and we hear you. So I want to make sure that you know that. There is no set plan, and if somebody will message Avery with the link to the call, that would be really great, because she just slacked, but she couldn't find the link. Thank you.
You got that, Jeff?
Yep.
Okay, and so it's a work in progress, and we're trying to put together. And when we talk about what the plan is and what the structure and all of that is, it's not just what the Kauffman Foundation is looking to do. It really is things that are evolving from the community and how we best support community in doing that work. So this isn't the Kauffman plan. This is putting together structures. And so I work in support of all of you. So your best thoughts and ideas, your questions, all of those things, please feel free to reach out as we put together this thing. So a couple of ideas and thoughts. Hello, Avery. Couple of ideas and thoughts are, as we go forward on these working groups, what is this working group call to be for each of you? So the idea is that these monthly calls can be whatever you need them to be. Does it mean it's a checkpoint once a month to talk about how the projects are going and make sure that we're not duplicating efforts and overlapping? Is this something that becomes where we talk about the theme or topic of the month and share that information? Is this something where we become ombudsmen and kind of support each other in the work that we're doing professionally and personally, professionally, as well as in projects? So I will have you talk amongst yourselves about these things, and then the plan is that I will put together a survey which will go out to all of you specific to the call. So it's each goal call plus storytelling will have its own survey of its own specific community to figure out what the call needs to be. A couple of you have been on other calls and talked about some of these calls being part check-in, part update, part something else. You decide, and we're going to take that information that comes through on the survey and make it very transparent and share it with everybody. We won't necessarily share who said it. We'll aggregate that information, but we will put it out there for all of you to see. the plan, and this is just ideas at this point, and you let me know whether it makes sense. And I'll let you talk amongst yourselves and give feedback, is that we would put out initiatives on a common template or brief and put them up on the dashboard, which is specific for everybody who is taking part, like, you know, taking part in the projects themselves. And remember, like, the ESHIP playbook for a while, it used to live on the Kaufman site and people could comment on them. So we're thinking that the best way to share information, so we're not all duplicating efforts, hi Jackie, is that we would have it accessible so people could comment on the projects that respective groups are working on, and then the project groups themselves can decide whether or not they take that information into account and edit their projects or whatnot, depending on what people write. So how people join project groups, how people onboard, those are things that are still being addressed and thought about, and we'll work to support the community to the best of our ability and with your input to be able to be the things that you need it to be. So the idea of having those project initiatives up on the data dashboard is so that everybody can see what everybody else is working on. So you work in tandem and not duplicating efforts or working in silos. And the idea is not that you, the ecosystem building practitioners, are an R&D or test market. In a perfect world, and this is the equation that Christina and I had thought about back in October when we were brought on to help support this work, is that there should be an initiative plus an ecosystem building practitioner community of some kind, plus a national resource provider equals a pilot project. And the reason that you need all these things is the initiative has to make sense, right? I mean, there has to be an idea to work on. Otherwise, it's a bunch of people just hanging out, which is all well and good, but we need to move the work forward. Ecosystem building practitioners are your boots on the ground, field level experts, and people who are, for all intents and purposes, will become a board of customers for the projects themselves. So you need ecosystem building practitioners or people who affirm and validate these projects. And then you need national resource providers, because there's no one foundation, no one organization that can do it all, and it needs to be sustainable. And foundations have a very hard time funding a group of people like ecosystem building practitioners. They can fund organizations. There's a lot of nonprofit, for-profit discussion and how that gets funded. But that's why all three of those elements need to be put together in tandem in order for a pilot project to evolve. If a national resource provider has a solution and they don't have ecosystem building practitioners, then sometimes what ends up happening is they solve for something that's not actually a problem, right? They create a solution and say, here it is. Just like an entrepreneur has this thing and they think that they're solving a problem, but they're actually not. And ecosystem builders, without that sustainability model on how this thing scales and lives, has a great idea and only has as much runway as they can afford to have. So that's why all those three things should, in Christine and my mind, live together in order for a pilot project to evolve. So that being said, in order to support this work, my principal driver is we're going to support the work. We're here to help move the field forward and support those efforts, and to foster a community where everybody feels like they have purpose and there's a sense of belonging. So those are my tenets. And that's what I'm hoping to foster in order to support this community in doing the work that they do. So to that end, please discuss amongst yourselves what kind of mechanism these monthly phone calls become, what would help in that beta dashboard. And the reason that we use the beta dashboard is when anything lives on a, first of all, it shouldn't live on the Kauffman.org site because these are initiatives of the field, for the field, by the field, right? If we have it live on the Kauffman website, there's a concept that it belongs to Kauffman, and Kauffman is not there for it to belong to. And it's not the Kauffman field of ecosystem building, it's the field of ecosystem building, right? The other thing is that if anything goes on the .org site, it has to go through a lot of different people's checkpoints. There's legal, there's public affairs, there's all these people that have to affirm that that is confirmed by the foundation, and that's just not conducive to having a field for the field by the field. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go in where it's a little quieter so you can hear me, and I'm going to not talk for a little bit, and then in a couple of minutes I'm going to jump off. So are there any questions that you would like me to address? Anyone?
I'll start off. I'm sure lots of other people do. So I think, you're asking what is the working call to become? And I think the answer to that depends a lot on what comes out of the exercise the planning exercise that you said is being put together by you guys at Kauffman. I think that will at least influence what the calls should become. That's just my initial reaction. Thoughts? Anybody agree or disagree with that?
Anyone else?
I agree with your perspective, Jeff.
Yeah, I agree as well. You know what, the formula that we've seen work really well for, multi-stakeholder, volunteer-based collaborations is where calls have very clear action-oriented agendas and folks feel a strong sense of progress, of both acknowledgement and visibility of what has been achieved since the last meeting and of what needs to be done before the next meeting. And so I think to Andy's point, there's kind of the fractal nature of this, right? And so those initiative calls, those may be those monthly touch points or weekly or whatever is the cadence that's needed for those specific projects, in which case this call should probably only be one representative from each of those groups, specifically coming together to say, here's my update on where my initiative's at, here's the blocks we're facing, here's the resources or materials we need, does anybody else need help? Because then you're grounded in reality of what's happening in the other groups. And I think part of what I will only name for myself, but part of what I found a little frustrating about these monthly calls over the last year was that there was a constant kind of influx and outflux of, it was never the same people. Right now, it's not even the same people as it's been before. And so we sort of kind of were in this perpetual cycle of introductions over and over again. And I think that prevents real progress. And so I would essentially suggest 3 separate containers. I would suggest an onboarding container that is about introductions, that's for people who are new to Goal 4 and who are excited about that, where they can get oriented to the dashboard, they can get oriented to who's leading the different initiatives, they can share who they are and what they care about and how they want to be involved, and that is what that call is for, and maybe that's on a quarterly basis depending on how many people are coming in. That there's monthly calls for different initiatives that are run by a specific lead for that initiative, And then there's a monthly call, i.e. maybe this specific container on these Wednesdays, that's for the leads of those initiatives to share with each other what's going on. That would be my process-oriented brain going into structure mode.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good, Avery. I wrote some of that down. I like the action-oriented. I like the idea of a captain and co-captain and a representative from each initiative for the one-time monthly goal 4 call. Logistically, I think pulling off an intro call, I think, is a good idea as well, to kind of for people to introduce themselves. That would shave 20 minutes off most of these calls. Don't laugh, Cecilia. You're 20 minutes. Anyone else?
It's Mel. Hey guys. So my feedback, I think Avery is like spot on. I really like that idea. But my feedback as somebody who wants to get more involved is that I didn't know there were separate initiative calls. And so if I
There aren't yet.
They don't.
Oh, okay.
They're
So
not
that's
yet.
going
That's the
forward.
idea. Yeah.
This is
Okay.
the proposal.
So then, yeah, as a person who just wants to be more involved and do more work, like I would love the opportunity to do that on an initiative call and then have somebody else do the check-ins. But I think that's great.
Awesome. Thanks, Mel. Jackie, you got anything?
No, I'm on board with most of what's been said here. Actually, all of what's been said here. I think the main question in my mind is how do we easily disseminate the information about where people can jump in on initiatives in certain special ways. Like if there are just tasks to be done, folks like me who are just willing to take on bite-sized pieces of things. And is there some way of supporting like a call with a more direct updates? And then what does it look like for that, like the reporting up of how progress is going overall, and still feel like we're in touch with that and understand the excitement around the bigger vision.
Perfect.
So that's, I mean, it seems like the dashboard can be a part of that, but.
For everyone who's on the call, if you have the chat, I did put a link to the dashboard as it stands in there, as well as Cecilia's 2 questions. So anyone else? Jackie, those were all great. Those were good. Avery, you were going to say something?
I agree, Jackie, and I think that that's part of what the project management component of the initiatives needs to cover. Mm-hmm. That the first kind of phase of a project like this is scoping what is the project plan, what needs to be done, what's the task list. Because once you have that, ideally, if somebody can come and say, look, I've got 1 hour a week, great, you fit here. Or I've got this specific skill set, great, you can do these things. And like that, it does feel like whoever's leading the initiatives, there needs to be a filter for them to be strongly grounded in project management experience, as well as facilitation experience, so that that's being set up for success. These are things that can be taught. This is the training that we've been kind of pitching, is making sure folks have that background and that skill set. But that's that ability for folks to be able to plug in, knowing their time and knowing their skills, is what will make or break, to me, whether or not this is mass collaboration or siloed, isolated projects.
And I think also like super fine agreement on what the job to be done is. Yeah, like how do we have that living outside of one-on-one conversations or being on a phone call? I'm not sure what that looks like, but I know Avery has lots of ideas, I'm sure.
Hey, Cecilia. So, and maybe I think this is a Cecilia Avery question. So, Avery, you're bringing up project management, and I'm wondering if the Kaufman Foundation has any tools they use or around project management, a project management template, if you will, that could be used for all initiatives in each of the goals, or if that's something that needs to be done across all the goals and initiatives.
So
a common theme that we all use.
Okay.
Brief.
So, brief. Well, basically, that's what we're
not a brief.
we're
I mean, like a project management tool, whether
So-
it's Airtable or a Trello or something.
Right. So
Yeah.
So at this time, we don't. Some of the tools that we've been using, like the dashboard, is actually a Google site that Christine started, which I maintain. So the ideas, and like I said, these are just ideas at this time, is that we would create a page per goal so that we would house these calls on them. So when we upload the video from these monthly calls, that they would go on a goal specific site. So anybody who's curious or is whether or not they're involved in specific projects can go and view what's taking place on the calls. So it's not isolated. We were talking about putting together an intro thing, kind of like what we started in storytelling back in the day, when we wanted to make sure that people didn't have the new kid in class syndrome coming onto a call. And there would be something where each respective person would fill out a little bit of a bio about themselves, including their preferred method of contact, these are the goals I'm interested in, these are the initiatives that I want to work on. And so you introduce yourself to the community. Maybe you want to list skill sets, maybe you want to list ways I'd like to get involved, so that you're part of a community and other community members can see what's out there. So it's community board. And then trying to define, so yes, putting together an initiative brief, probably the one that we used at the ESHIP Summit, which has basically what the brief was. For those of you who've been on calls prior, it will be that project that the initiative is. Where it goes from there, in my mind, I'm thinking that it is up to whatever the project group is to work on that. Avery's like shaking her head.
Oh, God, the pain. No, like seriously,
Yeah.
if every initiative is being run by somebody on a completely different process,
Mhm.
or like the pain and the lack of interoperability and the lack of like that, there is no need for that.
So
But-
do you have so the idea is, though, that you work very differently than other people do. Projects themselves are a different scope. Some are, and there's best practices, so we can definitely share those. But
there's also the power that is just of being on the same platform, right? Like if every initiative is on Asana, and there's time and energy spent to training people to being on Asana, you can still have freedom for like your specific flow state of how you want to do it, but there's still transparency and visibility across what's being done. There's assignability, so you know who is accountable for any specific task. There's date and tracking of that record, so that you know when something's overdue or what.
Just a general project management tool, right? I mean, is what
And
Jeff
so-
was initially asking, I think, Cecilia, does Kaufman have direct access to one of the more common project management tools that are out there right now? Because right now, the Google Share Drive thing is not working.
Okay, so I can tell you that currently we do not.
Not.
Okay. So if it's a request by more than one goal call, if it's a request by more than one initiative group, I can bring that up. I cannot promise anything. Again, it's a matter of, is that where the funding goes, right? Because if there is a pool of money, and I don't know what's there and how it's going to be utilized, but so the question should be, if there is X amount of money, is that best utilized in spending the money funding a project, or is it best utilized by using that towards supporting the structure that you're talking about? So it is a finite amount no matter what, right? Even like, and even if you were the Silicon Valley Foundation, which is the largest funding foundation in the world, you're talking about $12 billion, right? And now, how is that allocated? And even at $12 billion, you're not going to fund 130 initiatives. So that just won't happen. The idea also with national resource providers is that they'd also share resources. And maybe that's an ask of a national resource provider. As a national resource provider, and there are talks, I don't know where they're going. There are organizations with that kind of technology and that tool. Is that what they're going to offer this community as being, we're a national resource provider, and to benefit and move the field forward, that we're going to, maybe it's Asana, maybe it's Trello, say, we're going to let you use our platform and we will charge you for it. We may charge you for it. I don't know, right?
Honestly, they mostly have free versions that would do what we need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
To the, yes, and a lot of them do, but to 30 initiatives working across, and remember, there is not one solution
Okay.
for, so I want you to remember that some people interpret those initiatives differently.
Okay. So just to get back on track, I think
Different versions of goal number, initiative number 3.2, right? It is totally feasible that 3 different groups think that they have the way to solve for 5.1. And they're only going to know by looking at each other and finding out from each other what the other one thinks. And so that's where we want as much transparency as possible. And now everybody is out of this session, so I'm going to need to go. I've made Tyler the host. I'm going to let you all discuss it amongst yourselves. You have wonderful, brilliant minds, and you're going to come up with epic stuff. So I'm going to leave you. I will listen to the phone call afterwards, and feel free to reach out to me. Email ESHIP Bowles, and then I can share the information with Christine. And like I said, we're all working to figure this out. So we don't have the answers. We're hoping that all together we're going to come up with the best solution. Okay? Thank you all, and carry on.
Thanks, Cecilia. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay. Got a couple people on the call I haven't heard from. We want to apologize for that. And
Tyler, could you rename the phone numbers to people's names, please?
I'll try to.
So 417 is that Mary Overby?
Mary, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Are you the?
There you are.
We're trying to clarify who's who. Are you the 417?
Yeah, I am. I just parked, and so I'm actually trying to get on the Zoom. I had to update Zoom on my phone, so I'm going to flip over to where you guys can see me,
Okay.
I think, here in just a second. So.
Okay. Well, whenever you're ready.
Let's see here.
Yeah. Well, did you want to chime in now, or do you want to take a couple minutes and get set?
Let me get set, and
Okay.
then you can see my expressions, which are super expressive, I swear.
All right. So we'll mute you for now. We'll talk to you in a minute. Okay. So.
Okay.
815. Who's the 815?
That's me, Carol in Chicago.
Hi, Carol.
Hi. Hey, guys. In keying off of what I just heard Cecilia say about her, for instance, her 5.1 initiative example that maybe 3 different groups are working on, it struck me right away that, oh, well, then that suggests that all the goal groups need to adopt, opens up the question for me of, do all the goal groups then have to adopt a similar process of what their monthly calls are going to be about, so that we've got some kind of, I want to say synchronicity, but maybe that's not the right word, not quite right, but in order to gain the transparency and be able to communicate effectively across goal groups, it seems to me that we maybe need to have similar processes. And so Cecilia opened this call asking, well, what do we want our goal 4 process to be?
Yeah.
But we don't have, it may be useful for us to hear how other groups answer that question, just to understand a broad spectrum of possibilities before maybe all 7 groups plus storytelling, if we're going to still have storytelling remain as a separate satellite out there.
Yes.
Voting, or in some of, it seems to be voting. I'm a majority rule kind of girl, so
Of course.
I'll go with that concept for the moment. To just have an agreement about one process that overlays all of us, so that as we mix and match ideas and initiative progress, we have as few barriers as possible between us. Am I thinking in a way that makes sense?
Yes, you're actually right on track. So if we call that a 2-part process, right, this is part 1. Each group kind of throw its, hey, if you're asking us how we'd like to do it, how would we break it down? Does it look like Avery's breakdown or something, that's hybrid that we're all going to try and, it's us setting it up right now without permission, and saying, if you're asking us, this is how we do it, and then they're going to combine that from all 7 and get back to everybody and say, okay, goal 4 and goal 3 and goal 2 all said they want to do a monthly call with initiative calls that are also monthly, or quarterly or whatever the schedule might be pursuant to them, how they want it set up. And then, then the vote happens probably on the next set of calls, let's say next month. Okay. Does that make sense, Carol?
Yep. Yeah, it does. Although, are you suggesting we're all in one system, or are you suggesting that we will each operate independently, make our own choices, and that we aren't necessarily all doing things similarly?
All in the same system, so it might take 2 to 3 months to actually get to the final voted, like we'll probably hear 10 solutions, right, next month. And everybody will try a little bit and then come back and say, here's the 3 we like as a group, right? And then everybody says, okay, we win.
But
Well,
in
it
the
seems
long
like
run,
there
that
could be a pretty simple survey too right now of just like
Who's using what?
who's using what project management platforms, who's familiar. Like, I don't care because I've used Trello, I've used something like, I can list the 3 that I'm like natively comfortable with as soon as it gets picked. And it seems like pretty quickly you would get to at least some 1, 2, or 3 that have risen to the top as like most folks are familiar with that technology.
Yep.
And then therefore you have a lower training barrier to entry for folks. I do visibly cringe when we talk about each initiative or each goal going off and doing its own thing. It just feel like there's so much siloization in the world and so much lack of coordination in the world, and that's contributing to our inability to get shit done.
Okay.
Yep.
And I would agree. This is Carol again. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of everybody deciding that there's going to be one way and only one way we're going to operate.
Yeah, no,
Okay, and so
here's Mary. Here we go. I was just about to say.
oh, be ready, folks. It's going down. Okay, so first off, we are ecosystem builders, correct? So our job is to develop a framework for how to collaboratively work together within large communities and projects, right?
Yep.
So for us to work within silos and not to be developing a system, utilizing a system, to me is complete and utter bullshit, because we're not talking the talk and walking the walk. So,
Okay.
the last 2 years have been thinking, right? It's been the dreamers and the thinkers creating. Now, this year is the year of implementation, which means this is the year for the doers. And so you need to let doers step forward and say, this is how we do. And we do through project management, we do through facilitation, we do through organization, and we do through collaboration. And if we're not doing that, then there is literally no reason to be a part of this. So, I mean, I am not going to sit and not do, because that's not what I do. I don't have time for that, and none of us do. And so if it is not collaboratively and if we are going to waste 2 to 3 months voting on what freaking organizational management system to utilize, then we are wasting 3 months out of our 12-month implementation year. And that blows my mind. That is still in the dreamer doer stage. That is, or the dreamer thinker stage. That is not in the doer stage. Like, today is the day we start working and getting organized and have this done. Because my thought process when I joined all this was that we were going to walk out of here with a framework that I could then take and utilize 100% anywhere I wanted to work and say, this is the ideal way to get it done. And from what I'm hearing is that I don't even feel like we're going to walk out with that at this point. I feel like people are already doing it. Like, they've already funded the NRPs that they wanted to fund, and they're already doing stuff. There are some that are being
No, they haven't.
Yes, they have. On Goal 5, yeah, they've already got Ford Cities is already out there actively implementing and doing it. So part of that is really good, because part of Goal 5 with having quantified methods is testing your theories, right? Is what we're doing correct. But if there are people actually out there doing, and we don't know about it, which is what happened, nobody knew they were doing it. So, like, we have to know they're doing it. It has to be collaborative and coordinated, or else it's not going to be useful.
It also, I think, drastically erodes and breaks down any trust when you've been told 5 different times from everybody you talk to that the RFP process has not been finalized and no funding has been deployed. To hear
It's
that
been deployed for months.
Well,
I guess they
to
announced it at the
be
end of
clear,
So maybe that's a different. That's
probably
different than
different
what
Can I,
the.
hold on, because we're recording this. I don't want to get off track here, ladies. Okay.
I'm just
I
saying,
do know
so
that the
my only
particular
thought,
funding you're referring to for Forward Cities, which was revealed last week, was a 9.5-month process.
yes,
Okay.
Well
So that's not
before
this
ESHIP.
thing.
Okay. Well
yes.
before.
Yeah.
Well before.
But
Okay.
here was the thing: is like Goal 5 did
Okay.
not know that they had been doing anything.
Well, that.
And to
Let's
me,
go.
if you
This is
have,
the goal. This is the Goal 4 call. Let's talk about Goal 4. Here
I
we
know,
go.
but I'm just saying, if there's anybody out there doing Goal 4 work that Goal 4 is not aware of, that we need to have them in on this conversation.
Great. Okay.
So
Well,
that needs to be part of the moving forward as well. Is like,
yes.
is there anyone out there already doing this that needs to be a part of this? I do think we need to have the breakdowns of the initiatives, and then one person reporting back for each initiative.
Okay.
But I think right now it's about project management, moving forward, and actually making sure that we have final deliverables by the end of this year that the communities can utilize.
And that is with all honesty, I don't want to, people to start disseminating that, they jumped the shark on us or something like that. Okay. Because in many cases they haven't. In many cases on many goals and initiatives, some of the things were based off of projects that were either in process or being revamped. Some projects, like even mine, were actually tabled, and consolidated into other things, there are other people who are just doing things anyway, if we get paid for it eventually, then great.
Right.
So, and those people are on this call, but so love your attitude. I love that you're on Goal 4 with us, Mary, because we are going to get some stuff done. Project management tool seems to be something that everybody keeps bringing up, and so let's just recognize that will be an ask that we push forward. I do want to hear from everybody, if possible, to make sure, is there any other ideas you'd like to share? Is there any points of view? Brett, Alistair, Brett, Mel, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with ya.
Yep.
No, I completely want to just say ditto to a lot of what Mary was saying about, and Avery too, about having like a framework that anyone can take and anyone can use, and that all the goals should be using it. So I think everyone should be on the same thing.
Well, and I want to just clarify language here on a few things. So when I say framework, what I'm specifically referring to in this is what we built around convening circles, and it's the framework for how small groups take action together. and it's a 4-phase process. It could be monthly calls, it could be bi-weekly. Like the timing is totally up to the group and what they're doing, but it is investing heavily in the clarity of what is the action. So to Jackie's point, like you need to get crystal clear on what this group is achieving and not try to conflate like 3 or 4 different projects into one. The second, the research phase. So Mary, to your point, who else is doing this? What already exists? Like, let's not reinvent the wheel if we don't have to. Let's invest in everybody doing a little bit of research so that we can bring it together and get a more holistic picture together. And then the third phase is doing. It's taking action. It's doing pilots. It's iterating. It's learning. It's revamping. And then coming back to ESHIP and being able to share and celebrate. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't. Here's what we achieved. Here's what we could do better next time. So when I say framework, that's what I mean in terms of a philosophy or a structure. When I say platform, that's what I mean, like literally like the software platform that is running the project management. Asana, Trello, Monday, whichever one you want to use.
Smart Sheets.
Oh, yeah. But not Google Docs and not Google Site. Like that isn't project management software. Yeah.
So
I am. Oh, go ahead.
Mel, I just want to ask Avery a question real quick about the thing that she did. So I was not allowed by my former employer to be a part of these groups. So I am coming in on some of these later than I wanted to. But it was my assumption that within that chart that you just showed us, the first 2 years of these work groups were supposed to be filling those first 2 sections. So the watch your action and then fill in the gaps. And then this last year was supposed to be take action, correct? And then
I think philosophically that's what they thought they were doing, but the reality was that there wasn't enough permission or resourcing to do the work for them to really get into the weeds. So at the end of last year, when we did the initiative list and we got these are the initiatives and here's who wants to lead them and here's who wants to participate, I brought this forward and it was like, great, let's train the hosts, let's get them running on this. And I believe we could have used last year to get there. We didn't for a variety of reasons, right? Like there was a need for being able to bring on board the community, holders, i.e. Cecilia and Christine. That took some time. That like foundations
foundations are slow. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
they
It's
are.
fine. I do think that they did a lot of intelligence gathering and they did generate a lot of interest and they have a lot of humans who are ready to do. I don't think they have actually done the detailed work necessary to know here's the project plan for each of these actions. I don't think they've gotten to that stage yet. We've done these briefs to kind of scope the initiatives, but we haven't yet gotten the resources or done the like, okay, here's the task list.
Well, yeah.
Let's go.
So that on Avery's circle, we did. So we got halfway around at the end of the last ESHIP, and we realized that there was so many things that people wanted to do, and that the give part of the NRPs and the ask from us was so far apart we would never get to hear by the next ESHIP. So we grabbed 40 people and we got to hear. And then that's what we said, listen, we think we're pretty close. What do you guys think? What do you all think was what this ESHIP was about? Is are we close? Are we close enough for you to say, I'm in, I'll do that. I'll take that on right now. I'll start getting that done, like you say. You use the word do 17 times in that what you said, Mary. So that's a lot of doing. It's a lot of doing.
Oh my gosh! Okay? I hope you really did count that.
I did. I have that. Yeah. But I mean, so we are currently here on the circle. So we've moved back up, right? We kind of we did a little tighter loop to make sure, and now we're back here again. So we don't have to start all over. We just got to start, we got to start up at the top again. And so we're in a good spot. The question, what they're again saying is okay, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And let's see how similar that is across all goals and all initiatives. So yes, there needs to be a single location for everybody to get on board. The beta dashboard is not bad for that. But beyond that, I think I'm hearing a lot of people say we want to get off the Google platform for communication and project management.
Well,
You know, or at least, you know, for the project management portion of it, for, you know, who uses what where. The great part about most of those solutions is they sync with almost everything else, right? So however you are used to creating something and contributing, you'll be able to push that stuff into the project management and answer and do stuff like that. So let's get off that track if we can. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we only got about another 10 or 15 more minutes. What was, she had question one was like, what were the things? And okay, so let's talk about your own drivers going forward. You know, if we were looking at goal 4 and looking at our initiatives that we have, you know, the ones that you signed up for, you know, does everybody want to kind of chime off on you know, who's driving on what, who's focused in on what?
You just maybe start with 4.1 and you take us through the list, and then we'll.
Yeah, that might be a good idea to just say, you know, who's sat at that table at ESHIP, or at least for a little bit, and then who is working. So I'm going to unmute all so we can all talk together. All right, so go 1 or go 4. The ecosystem building toolkit. We all know that
Enoch and
Yep.
co-stars.
We all know that as Marketplace, but did anybody jump in on 4.1 table? Did anybody?
Jackie did.
Yep. You want to chime in? You're sticking with that one, or you continue to work on it? What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one.
Okay. So Jackie's on that one. So Jackie, if we end up going with the setup where we break up to a leader or somebody on like one of the other initiative calls to report back, was that something you do since you're jumping on this call with us? Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we're a co-captain situation, I definitely would.
Okay, perfect. All right, 4.2 was the calendar, which is did anybody work on that?
I'm working on that with Enoch.
You are? Okay. Because I know the table discussion didn't really go anywhere, unfortunately. Which
Wrong people were there because we needed to be in other conversations. So co-starters and communers.org is running with that.
yeah, you guys already have some infrastructure. So
yeah.
All right. So can I just put you on that one, Avery? Because
Yes.
I know you're going to be on everything else, but I'd rather say.
That's fine.
Okay. 4.3, new communication channels, journals, meetups, online. You know that,
Mel,
Yep.
I sat at the table.
You did?
And
Okay.
it again didn't really go anywhere because we started talking about some things, and then somebody from another table hopped over and said, "Oh, they're already doing that." So it kind of felt like, oh, okay. So again, everything being siloed, we didn't really know that there were things in place already, but I would love to be involved in that initiative. So.
Okay. Let's swing back around. I'm going to put you on that for now, Mel. Let's swing back around. I know somebody took a photo of the 4.3 table on the wall and all the notes. Well, I think we got all the notes, actually. So if anything, we can swing back around on that. We can take a look at what was said and see where it might have landed, like you said. And you know, because really I think 4.3 was about just identifying how many places we can be communicating, where, etc. Jeff, maybe that's something that's an add-on to the hub.
I think there's definitely an overlap.
There's the, you know, that at least how, you know, where do we house a list like that, right? You know, backlinks for everybody. So
and we are soliciting the NRP on that if you're needing that specifically for this next RFP.
Conveners is?
Yeah.
Conveners is okay. Yeah. All right, so 4.4 is the Ecosystem Builder Hub. Jeff, that's you and I. Since you volunteered me today, I'm volunteering you for this.
That's not a problem. And Avery's the NRP network, right?
Yes.
You're leading 4.5.
Yeah.
Did anyone sit at 4.6?
I know very little about that one.
Yeah, which one's 4.6 again?
That
Field
was,
governing or standards body. Establish one or more intermediary organizations to develop shared governance approaches and standards for the field.
Yeah, that's one that I've been running away from as far as I can get because it's terrifying.
Well, it really feels a lot like with the is it goal 2, the shared values, and
Yeah.
I don't know why that's even in 4. I think that's
Well, and I pretty strongly felt like
well,
standard right now is jumping the gun before we have more collaboration and shared identity.
well, and I think it's okay too if we don't have people standing up and say, yeah, I'm going to lead that, then that says something about that initiative.
well, I think that might be a point of discussion for SCN actually. So I think that might have been that you're correct that this may have moved from 2 to 4, but I'm taking a shot in the dark there. So no.
Yeah, and I know SCN's got interest in at least like 8 different initiatives.
Yeah, but which is fine. We want to see things, starting if there's people that are doing work that can pivot an existing organization or can pivot an existing community, even the slightest to align better with our goals. I think it'll benefit us, right? And that's how we take over the world, folks. So we got a couple more minutes. Does anybody want to chime in on anything else that they would like to see from this perspective? Anything they want to bring attention to? They need help with?
Are those all the initiatives then? So we have leaders for each of the initiatives now?
Except
Wait,
6.
Other than 4.6, or unless that's SBN or SB.
let's leave that one. Let's leave that one open, or I'll take it for now, and I'll find out what that story is on that one. So, okay.
Yep.
Brett, you.
Yeah. Hi, this is Alistair.
Alistair.
I'm new to the group, although I've been in Group 5 for a long time, and I wanted to know more about what you were doing.
Excellent.
But for this conversation, I would definitely support the project management platform idea that otherwise I see it's going to be chaos for all the groups, not just this one.
Yes, very good. Yes, I've seen a lot of your comments on the Slack channels, Alistair. Thank you for all your contributions to and for dealing with Norris. So thank you.
For that, I expect to be paid.
Yeah, I think you might have moved yourself up to the top of the line of people who should get paid first. Yes.
The logoraic one is what we call him now, right?
Okay, so you're in on the project. Do you have any recommendations that you like for project management?
No, I mean, I've used several in the past, and they all have a certain learning curve. So,
Indeed.
Somebody pick one, and we'll go with it.
Okay. All right.
This is Carol. I've got a question. From that last exercise at ESHIP, have we got those raw materials in terms of all that documentation that each table filled out? Has that been turned over to whichever champions are going to stay most active with this goal group, so that we have that to use, or is there a way to assess which of those things are more worthy of attention than others? Because I'm guessing, after reading them all on the walls, that some of them were more on point than others.
Yes. So, yes, that stuff has been collected. It is being consolidated now, is my understanding. Who is doing that work? I do not know if that was Value Web or Wellington or who. I'm sure Cecilia can provide us an update on that, either in the Slack or in something else soon. But yeah, the idea is who was at the tables. That information needs to be consolidated. What was on the boards? That information needs to be consolidated. We were hoping to have it presented, I think, and at this point, but it's not here yet. But you are on the right track, Carol. So
I'm wondering if I'm thrilled to hear that. That's just such great news. But I'm wondering if that suggests what at least one of our calls might be about in terms of reviewing that information once it rolls up or pushes down. I'm not sure which direction we're going right now. so that we get our hands on it, and as a goal group, make an assessment of which of all those ideas and raw materials seem to be more actionable or more on point than others for just some focus before we splinter off into the initial or the initiative groups or the initiative subgroups.
Yep. I would think hopefully we'll have them by the next, I hope to say not next month's call, because I don't want Mary to shake her head.
I won't speak for everybody. I know that I took photos of like the 4.4 one and a couple others, so we could probably collectively find those that each of us has been is resonating with in the short term if they don't come up with something.
Let's
well, if we have a project management tool platform figured out, then we can put them all directly in there.
Yeah.
Everybody could
drop
access them.
We could just, okay, so actually, well, no, the Slack is a free plan and it's all full, so never mind. We'll work on that. We'll find a repository for maybe create a shared album on Google, and everybody can just drop it into a goal 4 shared album. See what we can come up with. But to be respectful for everybody's time, I want to go ahead and end it there and say thank you very much, all of you, on behalf of Cecilia and Christine and the whole Kaufman crew.
Tyler, can I just say that you're rocking at the facilitation here?
You're going to get hired for more facilitation rounds. You know that, right?
What was that? Say that louder. Say that louder, Larry. I
You're going to get hired.
Make sure the recording picks that up.
Yeah. You got to scoot the pooch on that one, dude.
Thank you. Carol, thank you. Guys, everybody. We'll get all this reported and back to the team, and we'll take it from there. So, plan on joining us again, okay?
Good seeing you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.